a form from the World Bank, and this will be going around. Please, as much as possible, we'd like everyone in this place to take time to go through it and to fill the forms appropriately as we get ready to start this event in earnest this morning. Thank you all very much, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Thank you, please. Just a moment. So the papers, the forms, as said before now from the World Bank, the forms will be going around. Please, as much as possible, when it comes to you, take time to go through the content contained in these forms and take time to fill the forms. That will be happening immediately as we speak, and we would like to get done with that before we get to start the event in earnest. The form is from the World Bank, so please, as much as possible, pay attention to the details contained in the form and take time to fill it, please. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, while the forms that are being distributed, like I said before, the forms are from the World Bank. The forms are from the World Bank. Please, we would like you to pay very close attention to the details contained in the form. I'd like to invite Mr. Solomon from the Ministry of Finance to come and give you a proper guide of what is contained in the forms that are being given to you from the World Bank right now. Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Solomon Tekibi Adagba. I am the focal person on this World Bank program called SEBA. SEBA is an acronym that stands for State Action on the Ease of Doing Business in the State. So the plan we are giving to you is one of the requirements for Benue State to be able to continue to participate in the program in the coming year, 2024. So if you look at the plan, we have about 6 items on it already lined up for you to make your decision. Like the first item is transparency of official fees and procedures. That is if you want to do tax clearance, for instance, we want the BRS to be able to tell us how much you are expected to pay, maybe on their website or on their billboards, so that when you go
Please, I've just been informed that some participants are asking for the forms from the World Bank. Please, those of us in charge of distributing the forms to the participants here present, kindly find time to get the forms across to the people that will be needing them, please. Thank you. Please, for those of us that are just coming in, would like you to know that before you got into this hall, there are forms that were being distributed from the World Bank, and we would like you to please take time and go through the content. If you do not have one of the forms yet, kindly ask any of the ushers or anybody that you see around you to give one to you. There are forms from the World Bank, being distributed around. Please kindly ask and make sure that you get a copy and take time to fill the forms, please. Thank you. Thank you. Please, for those who do not have the forms yet, just be patient. Copies of the form hopefully will be made available, but we currently do not have more to go round. But hopefully before the end of the event, more copies will be made available to get across to you, please. Thank you. Investors, most importantly, are very, very important to this meeting today, and a lot of conversations will happen. And we want all the local investors as much as possible to keep your minds open and prepare yourself to be a part of all the conversations and the discussions that will be happening in this place today. We want to hear from you. We want to know. We want to listen to your ideas. We want to hear your questions. And most importantly, how all of these ideas can make Benue State better and can open more investment opportunities here in Benue State. Once again, would like to thank everybody here, all the investors and all the distinguished personalities that decided to take time to be in this place today, to be a part of this history-making event here in Benue State today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me at this point to very warmly and quickly and very specially recognize the presence of the distinguished chairman for this event this morning. We're so honored to have here with us the chairman, who is the Director General and the Chief Trade Negotiator, Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations, Ambassador Fred Aga, PhD. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you so much. Our very honorable and distinguished chairman would like to welcome you to this event this morning. Thank you so much for finding time to be here with us. Thank you. Thank you. Please, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to very warmly and specially recognize and welcome the arrival of two very special and distinguished personalities that just walked into the house this morning. I'm so honored and privileged at this point to very specially and warmly recognize and welcome the presence of our keynote speaker this morning. Is the immediate past Executive Secretary Kadipa and Economic Advisor to the Katsina State Governor. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to very specially recognize this morning the presence of L0CAL. Thank you so much for coming. Would like to appreciate your welcome to Benue State. Please, can we give him a round of applause this morning? Thank you. Thank you very much. And also would like to once again recognize the presence of the chairman for this occasion, who's already seated. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to recognize you very specially. Thank you. And also this morning, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to very warmly and specially welcome the distinguished presence of our host, the one man who's seated at the helm of affairs at the Benue Investment and Property Management Company. This morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to very warmly recognize and welcome the presence of the Managing Director of the Benue Investment and Property Management Company. 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two. Thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to very specially and warmly recognize and welcome to this place this morning the man that's seated at the helm of affairs at the Benue Investment and Property Management Company. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please, if your hands are not busy, I'd like you to put them together as we welcome and very specially recognize the presence of the Managing Director of the Benue Investment and Property Management Company, Dr. Raymond Asemaka, as CFA. Please, can we give him a round of applause? He's our host in this place this morning, and he deserves to be appreciated and celebrated specially. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank you for the great work that you're doing, and most importantly, for this vision, bringing together local investors in Benue State and charting the way forward for our very beloved Benue State. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to very... Thank you. Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please at this point permit me to very warmly and specially recognize here with us this morning the very distinguished presence of the acting chairman of the Benue Board of Internal Revenue, and he's in this place represented this morning by the special... He's a representative, I beg your pardon, of the Special Advisor on International Investment to the Governor of Benue State, Mr. Emmanuel Agema. Please, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you so much, sir. I would like to recognize you and very warmly welcome you. Thank you.
Mr. Emmanuel Agema is actually the acting chairman of the Benue Board of Internal Revenue. This is a different person. I'm sorry. I'll do that.
I'd like to apologize very quickly for that mix-up. The acting chairman of the Benue Board of Internal Revenue is here in his capacity. We'd like to welcome you once again, Mr. Emmanuel Agema. Thank you, and sincere apologies for that mix-up, please. I would also like to very warmly and specially recognize the representative of the Special Advisor on International Investment. Would like to thank you very specially. I do not currently have your name here, but I believe that as soon as that comes in, we'll get to recognize you appropriately. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Would like to welcome you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to very warmly and especially recognize the presence of the president of the Benue Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Besima, the president of the Benue Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Master Porter Levi Obem Yakubu, MONNPOMFSNA. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you so much for finding time to be here this morning. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please at this point, permit me to very specially and warmly recognize this morning the presence of the Honorable Commissioner for Commerce and Industry here in Benue State, Honorable Alumo Opin. Please can we give him a round of applause as we welcome him to this place this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for finding time to be here. Thank you. As we get ready to begin, we'd like all of us to please kindly find a place to get settled. In the next few minutes, we'll be starting this event in earnest, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please at this point permit me to very warmly and specially welcome a representative from the Nigeria Association of Small-Scale Industrialists, Lady Gladys Shahu. Thank you so much for finding time to be in this place this morning. Would like to welcome you and recognize you very specially. Thank you. We also have this morning here with us a representative from the Nigeria Police Force, Kuhe Tekula. Thank you so much. Would like to very warmly and specially recognize your presence. Thank you so much for coming. We'd also like to recognize this morning the Vice Chancellor of Benue State University. This person is representing Vice Chancellor. Yes. This person is representing. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, I'd like to very warmly and specially recognize in this place the very distinguished presence of the Vice Chancellor of the Benue State University, Makudi, Professor Joe To Yorapo, who's represented in the house this morning by Professor Paul Angaha. Thank you so much for finding time to be in this place with us. Thank you. Thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, this morning we also understand that there's a possibility that there are some people in the audience this morning, some very special and distinguished guests that we may not be able to see directly to effectively recognize. If you're in this place this morning, you're a special advisor or an assistant to somebody, and we should recognize the person, or you're a dignitary in this place, please kindly let us know or let one of the ushers know, and we'll take the time to recognize you and welcome you appropriately, please. Thank you. This is just a kind reminder. The forms from the World Bank that were distributed at the start of the event this morning, if you still have yours, please take time to make sure that you fill the forms. This is a very, very special request from the Managing Director of BIPC. Those forms are very special and very important. So please take time to go through the content of your forms. In the next 2 minutes, we understand that we'll be starting this event, and we want you to be done with filling your forms before we get to start this event this morning, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very specially this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to very warmly recognize the presence of the Director Center for Entrepreneurship Development at the University of Abuja, who's here with us this morning, Professor Abdul-Razak Na'Allah. Please, can we give him a round of applause? Can we welcome him very specially? Thank you so much. He's one of the presenters and the speakers that will be talking to us at some point at this event this morning. I'd also like to very warmly and specially recognize the presence of one of the speakers also already here. I'd like to welcome the presence of Justin Baggy, Esquire. Please, can we welcome him very specially to this place? Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We'd also like to welcome the very distinguished presence of another very authoritative speaker who will be talking to us at some point during this event. I'd like to very specially welcome Mr. Oyiman Alu from the Policy Planning, Research, Monitoring and Evaluation Department at the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN. Please, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, this morning I'd like to very warmly and specially recognize the distinguished presence of Iverin Ethiopia, who's in this place this morning she's a Diaspora Partnership Manager from Ashoka in Lagos. Thank you so much for being in this place. I'd also like to warmly and specially recognize the presence of the Executive Director, African Capacity Development and Sustainability Initiative from Abuja, Mr. John Pilaku. Thank you so much for being in this place. We'd also like to very warmly recognize the very distinguished presence of the Director General of the Benue State International Cooperation and Development Coordinating Unit at the Governor's Office here in Makurdi, the presence of Mr. Leonard Angelo Viashima. Thank you so much for being in this place this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give these people a round of applause, please, if you don't mind? Thank you. And also this morning, I'd like to recognize the very distinguished presence of the Group Chairman, King D Nigeria Limited, Abuja, Chief David Ibrahim Aduluba. Thank you so much for being in this place. I'd also like to welcome the presence of the Country Director of Sasakawa Africa Association, who came in from Kano, Dr. Godwin Atse. Please, can we give him a very warm round of applause? Thank you so much for being in this place. I'd also like to very warmly and specially welcome and recognize this morning the very distinguished presence of the Chief Executive Officer of Cool Fresh Limited, Peter Bem Hembe. Thank you so much for being in this place. And this morning, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to recognize the presence of the lead consultant of Roots HQ Limited and an exco of the Slum to School Africa from Lagos, Dr. Ruth Dian Ebe, FIMC. Thank you so much. And this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to recognize the presence of the Assistant Chief Program Analyst at the Federal Medical Center, Makurdi, Ms. Yu Sandra Mlumun. Thank you so much for being in this place with us this morning. And also in the same vein, I'd like to welcome the presence of Dr. Stephen Akuma, PhD, from the Department of Mathematics and Computer Sciences at the Benue State University, Makurdi. Thank you so much for being in this place. And also I'd like to welcome the presence of Dr. Prince Will Odum from Randstad Framing Unit, Blue Team Jaguar Land Rover. Thank you so much. He came in all the way from the United Kingdom and he's a part of this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to very warmly and specially also recognize this morning the presence of the President of the Entrepreneurial Network, Dr. Kenneth Tefa, and all the members of the E-Network here this morning. Thank you so much for finding time to be in this place. Please, can we give them a round of applause, please? Thank you. And this morning, I'd like to recognize the presence of the Director General, Bureau of Entrepreneurship and Wealth Creation, Mrs. Benita Shuluwa, who's represented in this place this morning by Mr. Victor Goja. Thank you so much for being here. We'd like to welcome you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And very especially this morning, I'd like to very warmly recognize the presence of one of the best people that cook some of the best foods here in Makurdi, Benue State, the Managing Director and the CEO of the Foodie Cuisine. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Dome Dorcas. Thank you so much for being in this place very quickly. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the Sector Commander, RS42 Benue Sector Command. Please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. This morning, I'd like to also recognize the presence of Patricia Koja, the manager of Novus Microfinance Bank, a subsidiary of BIPC. We'd like to welcome you very specially. Please, if you're in the house, kindly wave. We'd like to see the people that we're recognizing. Thank you so much. Can we give her a round of applause? Thank you. I'd also like to very warmly recognize this morning the presence of DSI Jude Isaac, who's representing the controller of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Benue State Command here in Makurdi. Thank you so much for being in this place this morning. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize and warmly welcome the presence of Right Honorable Peters Shakuma, the first speaker of the Benue State Youth Parliament and the president of the Leaders Investment Club. Thank you so much for being in this space. I'd also like to welcome the very distinguished presence of Yopu George, the director of George Global Management Tech. Thank you so much for being here with us very quickly. Also, I'd like to welcome the presence of the CG of the Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, represented by the station coordinator of Makurdi Station, Dr. Mrs. Amarachi Aonduwase. Thank you so much for being in this place. And also this morning, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome and recognize the presence of the chairman of the Board of Trustees, Association of Cassava Seed Enterprise, Mr. Daniel Agudu. Thank you for finding time to be here with us this morning. And also permit me to welcome the presence of Professor Timothy Alaba, the Dean of the Faculty of Management Sciences at the Benue State University. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the representatives and, of course, the chairman of the Coalition Network of Stakeholders in Agricultural Mechanization, Mrs. Felicia Agara. Thank you. The Vice, Mrs. Fidelia Agara, I beg your pardon, and the Vice Chairman, Dr. Shadrach Akbem, and members here present. Thank you so much for finding time to be here with us. Thank you. Also would like to recognize the presence of the Group Managing Director of Oracle Business Limited, Sir Chris Omiye, who's represented by Engineer Daniel Uke. Thank you so much for finding time to be here with us this morning. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, would like to get straight into the business of our gathering in this place this morning. Please, before we get into the serious business, it looks like everybody is so serious this morning. Please turn warmly to your neighbor by your left and by your right and welcome somebody. Greet somebody who's seated right next to you as we get ready to start. Because this is like a very important time. We're about to get into the serious business for this morning. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I can't hear you. You look good, you look beautiful, you look wonderful, you look amazing. The neighbor by your left and by your right. Welcome everybody very warmly as we get ready to start this morning. Introduce yourself to the person. This is a very specially, I need you to understand that this is a networking event. The next person who might be investing into your project just might be seated right next to you. So please take time to introduce yourself, tell them what you do, and welcome them very warmly as we get ready to start. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. All right, thank you. For us to kickstart this event officially this morning, please can we all rise for the national anthem? Can we rise for the national anthem wherever we are, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless Nigeria. Before we get to commence this event and get straight into the event officially, I'd like to invite Elder Mr. Ugo to help us take the opening prayer as we get ready to kickstart this event in earnest, please. Elder Mr. Ugo, please, if you're in the house, kindly come forward very quickly for the opening prayer as we get ready to start. Thank you.
Hello, shall we pray? We may rise. Let's rise. Let's pray. Our dear Father and our God who is in heaven, we want to thank you for the gift of life. We want to thank you for the gift of health and strength to be able to come together in this place. We want to thank you for the creation of an enabling environment. Thank you for a leadership that can bring us together like this. Our Father, we desire to be instructed. We desire to be informed. We desire to come together to be able to offer our best in this society and in Nigeria as a whole. We're therefore committing this occasion into your loving hands. We're praying your leadership and guidance, that through it all, Father, we shall understand better, we shall grow better, and we'll be able to instruct each other better. We say, receive the honor and the glory, even as I prayed with thanksgiving in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. And as we get to start this event in earnest this morning, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, at this point, bring forward the man that's at the helm of affairs at BIPC. Most importantly, he is the visionary and our host this morning, and he'll be stepping forward to tell us more about the reason why we're gathered in this place. And just in case, for those of us who do not know exactly why we're here, this is the very maiden edition, the very first edition of the Benue Local Investors Forum. And the one man that's at the helm of affairs at the Benue Investment and Property Company Limited will be stepping forward at this point to give his welcome address, and most importantly, to tell us the very reason, the crux of our gathering in this place this morning. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please, if your hands are not busy, I'd like you to put them together at this point as I bring forward the Managing Director, Benue Investment and Property Company Limited, Dr. Raymond Asemakaha, CFA. Please, can we give him a resounding applause as he steps forward, please? Keep clapping as he steps forward. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, Honorable members of the Benue State Assembly in absentia because of the project that they're doing in Abuja, Honorable Commissioner, Captains of Industries, ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed honored to welcome you this morning in the first edition of Benue Local Investors Forum. One of the things that make us to introduce this is because we want to provide a solution, and our mission is transforming for our tomorrow, transforming for empowering our tomorrow. Benue Local Investors Forum brings stakeholders together to discuss, dissect, and come up with the good policy that will help us to find a way of doing ease of business. We understand that there's a paradigm shift in the world, and that's why we have gathered here to share a solution that will be able to take us to where the future lies. We all know that the state has about $5.8 million GDP, which we are not yet dead. We are supposed to be at least with a population of 6.3 million people, we are supposed to be at the GDP of 8%. I want to appreciate all the captains of industry for what they have been doing, the ladies, the creative people, the people that make things happen in the States. We want to thank you so much for, doing what you have been doing before and what you will be doing after this. To the private sector, we want to appreciate you for looking at the state and finding the state worthy to invest. There's no society achieve what they can achieve without having this forum today that we are having. As we move forward, I would like to project something. You can see that the state has about 6.5 million people in the state. And recently we discovered that there's a drop. We call ourselves the food basket of the nation, and we are not producing what we're supposed to produce. If you see the projection that I did over there, for the rice production, we're just doing 5.4%. And for the yam, we're doing 4.5%. And we call ourselves the food basket of the nation. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are confident that under the leadership of His Excellency, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, we, the Benue Investment Property, under my leadership, we are set to build a one-stop shop for investors, for the people that have been investing in the States. We want to be the #1 ranking of the World Bank Index of ease way of doing business. From this event going forward, we want to project our intended local investor to the world. We want to connect you people so that you'll be able to do the right thing. We want to thank you so much for finding the state worthy. The SME in the state have created about 401,000 jobs as we speak today. And among the jobs, we have about 210 for male and 191,000 for female. We also, on the data available to us, we also find out that the major job in Benue State, where it's supposed to be a full basket of the nation today, is Okada riders. And that's why we are gathered here to discourage those things, to enable us look for finding a great solution that will be able to project ourselves to where the world is going. As I round up, I want to sincerely thank His Excellency and the Honorable Commissioner and my chairman and my brother, friend, Khalid, for coming together. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we give the Managing Director of BIPC another round of applause? Thank you. You know, listening to him and seeing the slide of what he has prepared, one of the persons that I'm so optimistic about will turn the landscape in Benue around for good is the Managing Director of BIPC. I was listening to him on TV yesterday while he was having a media appearance. And for me, as a young Benue person right here, I'm very optimistic about the future and how much investors are going to be very excited about what is coming forward. And we're so optimistic and looking forward to all the good things. Please, can we give him another round of applause once again? Thank you. And as we move on this morning, at this point, I'd like to bring forward the distinguished chairman for this occasion. He will be coming forward at this point to give us his remarks. Please, ladies and gentlemen, our chairman this morning is the Director General and the Chief Trade Negotiator of the Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations, Ambassador Fred Aga, PhD. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we give him a resounding applause as he comes forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Your Excellencies, members of the Benue State Executive Council, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen, I stand on the existing protocols. I accepted the invitation to come to this event for one reason. I am from Benue State. I would say I was born and bred here. I may have lived out of Benue for some time, but I never left Benue. I am familiar with our circumstances, and I thought this is an opportunity for me to be provocative and perhaps help us reshape how we see our future. We are talking to people about investment, but all over the world, investment is not investment by itself. Investment must be driven by production, and production must be driven by trade. And all these can benefit the people, the economy, if you are competitive. So today, we are all familiar with what the global economy is facing, what has been described as a polycrisis. You have the war, Russia, Ukraine, war in Gaza. You just came out of the COVID crisis. You are experiencing fuel crisis. You have energy, climate change. All these are things that will not go away. They are things that will continue to affect our development. At the national level, we have had very dramatic policy changes. The fuel subsidy removal has affected the price levels. The alleged measure of the exchange rate has created a further depreciation of the naira, and we have ended up with imported inflation. Here in Benue, I am happy the MD spoke to our GDP. But an indicator that he did not tell you is the GDP per capita. The Benue at 5.6 and 6.3 million people, our per capita is what? Below 1,000. That is to tell you where your standard of living is. Something that he did not also mention to you is the fact that from 2016 to up to 2018, I've not seen the data for 2021, 2022. But the GDP growth rate in Benue is minus 3.4%. Minus 3.4%. So what does that mean to us? We are not growing. We are sinking. So these are some of the reasons why I thought I should come here. And the message I have for you and for everybody, including the governor, everybody, is we need to now think out of the box. It's no longer business as usual. We have somehow managed to even lower the benchmark for governance in Benue State to the payment of salaries. I may not get the figures right, but there is a trend. The government of Susam left, was it 3-4 months salaries. The next governor after him was ingenious enough, I won't say disingenuous, ingenious enough to put aside those months and start paying from January 2018. But by the time he left office, after 8 years, I don't know how many months of salaries, pensions, and gratuities he left. Our current governor is doing very well by paying salaries every month. But we have not looked at what the previous administration left behind. This is not a sustainable model. Assuming he also has, after 8 years, leaves some months, what will happen to the people? So we need to come together. This is the time for everybody in Benue to talk about the development of Benue. That's why I think this event is important. It's not about which party you are. The politics has come and gone. My advice also goes to those whose business is, they are like what you call crisis managers. Their own is to promote crisis even when there is none. At this moment in time, Benue has the greatest opportunity to move forward, where you have a state with a clear roadmap, with a good bridge into the federal government. And there is nothing you can do without the federal government where we are now. So those of us who think instigating crisis helps, provides daily bread, let's not sacrifice the future of our people, our young people. So what is the message do I have for you? Trade all over the world has been the basis of development, both small and large economies. Many of you may have read the history of Vietnam or Cambodia, who are classified as LDCs. But where are they now? Are they not better than Nigeria? After all the crises that they went through, they did certain things. They enhanced their participation in trade. And Benue can enhance its participation in trade if we think right and do the right things. First, many of you here are producers. But from a trade point of view, I don't even know whether you know the tariff lines of your products. How many people here know the tariff lines of their products? If you are doing pure water, what is the tariff line for pure water? If you don't know, you can't sell the pure water. If you are producing fruits and vegetables, what is the tariff line for fruits and vegetables? If you don't know, you can't sell your fruits and vegetables. If you want to sell your oranges or citrus, as they call it, in Benue, why is it that you can't sell it? Because international trade allows every country to protect human, animal, plant health and life. So when you take your citrus fruit in Benue and slice it, look at the core, the white core, at both ends is brownish. What makes it brown? Dust. Because you did not protect that fruit from dust. Nobody will buy that fruit. Nobody will buy your yams because we don't even know the fertilizer residue that is in your yam. We don't even know the pests that are coming out with your yam. So the key role here is for you as business people to interlock with the state government, interface with the state government. You have the Benue State University of Agriculture, you have Benue State University of L0CAL, you have colleges of education, colleges of agriculture. Why can't you bring the knowledge in these areas to bear on addressing some of these problems through research and development of technologies? That will make us better. I want to take you slightly back. I don't know how many of you here witnessed the regime of Governor Aperaku. Between 1979 and 1983, Governor Aperaku had a feasibility report on every possible industry that can be developed in Benue State. And I hope the commissioner is here. When you go back to your office, there is a room that nobody enters. Let them open it for you. You will see all those feasibility reports. The Benue glass industry. Some of them he established. Benue bond bricks, Benue Team Park. Today everybody goes everywhere for Team Park. Apuraku had a vision for a theme park. The flour mills at Ihu, Taraku mills, and we all know that Atonkwara merged the flour mill with Taraku mills. So, since Apuraku left, how many industries has any government successfully established in Benue State? I challenge you to name one. He didn't use government money to build any of these industries. He simply incorporated them. He invited people like Akozungwe, Tilegadu, some of them are like Jegwa Adaji, to subscribe shares in these companies. You can use your Benue investment and property development company to advance these developments. As outside the government, a society grows by the number of businesses that its people establish. Do we have any record of how many businesses are being established in Benue on a monthly, yearly basis? If you are not establishing businesses, you can't grow. Your GDP growth rate will move from minus 3.5% to maybe 10 point something, minus 10 point something percent. So there will be no upward reversal. So I'm pleading with us today to try to think outside the box. Some of us, the only thing we can do is to help you build a pathway, build a roadmap that will make things different. There are sectors that you are not even doing anything, but you can change. Can you imagine the impact of the private sector working with government and some partners abroad, building garment factories with a minimum of 15,000 sewing machines in the 3 geopolitical zones in Benue? It will mean if you are working 3 shifts, you have 45 direct jobs in each senatorial district. How many of our young men will you be pulling off the street? I'm not talking of the other jobs that the value chain will create. So let's talk. Let's look for where the markets are. It may be what you are producing. It may not be what you are producing. But once you know the market, once you know the market size, we can work with you to determine the size of your factory, the technology that you need to put in place, and the supply chain that will help you move your product into whether an African market under the FCFTA, or the European Union under the GSP, or the US under AGOA. In respect of AGOA, I am saddened we successfully got accreditation for all these ange, all these traditional dresses we have. This can be used for decoration in the US. I don't think any of you is even aware. If you pull all these different small scale weavers you see around, if you work with some of the engineering faculties in the universities, you can upgrade the technology. And you have a market because that product has already been certified for the US market. So these are opportunities you don't know. There are challenges that you may not understand in the international market. We are happy to work with you. We are happy to propose that instead of Benue Investment and Property Company relying on subvention from government, the State House of Assembly should change the law that allows you to access funds directly from a bond market. So if for instance, somebody has been able to identify a $500 million market, BPIC is not waiting for the state government to take 500,000 naira from the federation account and give it. It can go to the Singapore bond market, to the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund, and raise that money, help you export. 90 days, you are paid. The money goes back. It's a model for development. And I hope we can work on that. I thank you all. Sorry I took too much time.
For all those that are standing up to give him a standing ovation, I think our chairman deserves that and more. Can we give him a better applause? Thank you so much, the chairman of events this morning. What better way to set the tone for these conversations than for these great words that have been spoken by the chairman this morning. Thank you so much, sir, for finding time to be here and to give us these very great insights this morning. All right, so to take us further this morning, I'd like to bring forward the co-host for this event. He'll be taking us further as we move into other parts of the event this morning while I take the back seat, and I'll be back at some point before the event comes to a close. I'd like to welcome the chairman of the Central Planning Committee for this activity, who's also serving as a co-host this morning. Please, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if your hands are not busy, I want you to put them together as I welcome Mr. Tehemen JP Kenkban. Please, can we welcome him as he comes forward to take this event further. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Naomi. You've done an awesome job. It's wonderful to be here. And if you're a Benue citizen and you're not joining us here physically today, and you're neither online, you are wrong. For those of you who are here, can we celebrate ourselves with a round of applause? The last person who spoke here before the compare was the biggest Nigerian in the space of trade in the history of Nigeria. You're sitting before a colossus. You just listened to a colossus, and I did not hear you clap for him. He has so much to tell you, but he can't do that in one day, and so he just picked to be able to manage the constraint of time that we're experiencing. Now we're moving into the learning component of this program. If you have the brochure, turn to page 8, Roman numeral 8. The chairman has permitted me to give you a quick run over on the structure of this agenda so that you can understand why you're here. When we started, a lot of people thought that we were giving loans. We're going to be giving money out. It's not a bonanza. You are entrepreneurs, right? You are investors. We're expecting your money. Now, you heard him say that BIPC is necessarily going to transition from an entity that is just a manager to an organization that will drive investment in Benue. Did you hear that? Do you celebrate that? Give yourselves a round of applause for that. A new dawn has come upon Benue. I hear a lot of people say Benue is not entrepreneurial, Benue is not business savvy, and all that. A new dawn in the era of the new hope has arrived. And we're happy to have a very enigmatic young man who is going to be leading that process of change in the person of Dr. Raymond Asimaka. In that same light, we brought another young person, an even younger person, who has performed miracles. We say this is Benue local investors. You'll be asking yourselves why we brought someone from Kaduna to come and be part of this process. The answer is very simple. In the last 8 years, Kaduna state government has generated investment to the tune of over $4 billion. So what we invited this young man to come and do is simply to tell us how Kaduna did it. Now, because we are Benue indigents sitting here, after listening to him, we would ask ourselves, can we do the same? If not, better. If the answer is in the affirmative, then you look at your program. It takes us to the next phases of the program, the panel discussions and the breakout sessions, where we would all share the experiences of the challenges we're encountering in doing business in Benue, of investing in Benue, of bringing our resources to Benue. We'll tell ourselves the honest truth. Did you hear that? Tell your neighbor, today we will tell ourselves the honest truth. If we must move forward as a people, we must accept our reality, tell ourselves the truth, and find solutions to the problems we have. Do you agree with that? Because you have agreed, permit me to invite the immediate past executive secretary of KADIPA, Kaduna Investment and Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. The day that this young man signed out and resigned, hear me, the day he signed out his last day in office, he received an appointment from Katsina State to go and become the economic advisor to the government of Katsina State. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Khalil, Nur Khalil. You can do better. You can do better. You need projection?
No. It's fine. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellencies, members of the State Executive Council, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on existing protocol. I remember one time I came back from Taiwan and I was in the Lagos State Airport, and I used to always wear these SLS Aerofile looking suits, and every time they'll be telling me, Reverend Father, come here. So, I feel very much at home to be in Benue, where a Reverend Father is the governor. Okay, so let's get down to business. I'm here to speak on inclusive development, nurturing local investors for regional prosperity. I'm here to share insights on how Kaduna State achieved inclusive development by actively involving local investors in the state and economic activities. So understanding the policies, incentives, how we're able to achieve it. And like the compere mentioned, he said miracles. I'd like to believe they're scientific miracles, because you plan, you execute, it's quite methodical along the way. And if everybody is serious, you'll be able to achieve it. It's actually not rocket science. Even rocket science is not that hard, actually. So let's get into it. First of all, what is the logic of subnational economic development? I think every state in Nigeria needs to begin to think of themselves as a country, right? If you want to even get very controversial, if you're agitating to be a state or a country, the question is, what have you actually done so far? If you're recording negative growth, is that how you're going to run a country, with negative growth indefinitely? No. So all of us need to come together as one and begin to think, okay, we are Benue State. Literally, states in Nigeria are countries elsewhere in Africa. If you really sit down and think about it, we're 6 million people. How many people are in Ghana? How many people are in Togo? If you think about it, they're more or less local governments, if you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. So we need to begin to think differently. And like the ambassador mentioned, the chairman of the event, you need to also think globally. Now, I know a lot of people say, these children, they're just speaking English, they're just speaking English. But it's the English that will be bringing in the billions of dollars, sadly. Somebody has to speak the English. Do you understand? So, aside from that, the first thing that you need at a very subnational level is the right leadership. Without the right leadership, let's all just go home, I beg. There's really nothing to discuss here. You need the political will. And I believe Benue State has the right leadership. And after the right leadership, once you guys have made the decision at the electoral polls, then you begin to execute. It is not just the leader, right? It's not just someone doing everything. It's about everybody doing something at the same time, right? So what you need to do is this. Get the right leadership, then begin to have a vision. What is Benue State's vision? Where are you guys headed in the next 4 years? I should be able to ask an average citizen and he should be able to tell me, okay, we want to be an agricultural haven. We want to do this and this is the part that I'm playing. So it is a collective shared responsibility across the entire state. Everybody needs to know where they plug in the economy. Everybody needs to be a businessman or a businesswoman or supporting a businessman or a businesswoman. And that is the only way to grow subnationally. Forget the days of sharing money from the center. We need to begin to think ahead. The world has left us. We will be going there, Nigeria, 200 million. What do you have to show for it? What do you have to show for it? If we're going to be the pride of the world as the largest black nation, we need to get up now and begin to do the work. Let's stop being lazy. So essentially what happened in Kaduna State, as all of you know, had a very controversial boss, L0CAL. L0CAL, has a track record of delivering. This is an individual who walks the talk and talks the walk, if you follow me. My vice chairman of the investment promotion agency that I led was His Highness King Mama Sanusi II. That is SLS to most of you. So you can imagine the kind of pressures I was undergoing at the age of 28, RFI, SLS on your phone. You have to deliver. I just had no excuse. You must deliver. And what were we trying to deliver? The first things first is, we need to begin to realize that just the same way Lagos State did it back in 1999, and I'd like to also put in Jigawa State. A lot of people don't talk about Jigawa State because in 1999, Governor Saminu Turaki was doing fiber optic cables, broadband, free trade zones, he was doing pension boards and so on and so forth. So this guy was really far ahead of his time. And now His Excellency the President, when he was governor of Lagos State, we have already seen all the reforms that they were able to achieve in Lagos going forward, right? We have seen the effects in IGR, we have seen the effects in employment. Lagos is doing 600 billion naira in internally generated revenues, and I think in total about 1.3 trillion naira. That's where everybody should be headed. Every single state can do it. Every single state in Nigeria can do it. So this path to $1 trillion economy is possible. It's just going to take a lot of hard work. So think of it. We have the exclusive list, the concurrent list, and residual, right? So we know there's policy space for every subnational government to determine its own economic path, right? Then comes the issue of factor endowments in economics: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land. What are your physical, natural resources? Are you landlocked? Do you have a port, etc.? What are you doing with it, right? What are these economic assets that you possess, physically speaking? And then you have labor. So what is the demography like in Benue State? Do you have young people, old people? Are they skilled? Are they educated? Do you want them to be educated? What policies are in place for you to achieve that? Then you have capital, financial capital, social capital. Who here has what connection? Like how you have your chairman, there's a bastion, in trade. How are you guys all leveraging his connections into the global economy? And then there's entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is just new ways of gathering different resources, and achieving various aims. So what kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem do you guys have in Benue State? So you put all of that together, the state government has a vision, sits down with the private sector, you guys give your input, the state government gives its own input, and then you marry the two and have an economic vision that you're headed towards the next 10, 20 years. It's not rocket science, right? It's very, very much possible to achieve. So once you have all of these, you shape the policies, the legislative, regulatory frameworks that are needed in government to unlock and enable the private sector to lead the economy. So you need a government-enabled, private sector-led economy for you guys to achieve economic growth in Benue State. Easier said than done. But these kind of networking, summits, events, roadshows are the beginning and starting points for you to achieve this. It is very, very much possible. This is why the compare said, some of you think we're here to get loans and so on. I remember back when I was a small boy, I'm now an old man, I'm 31 years old. When we started these things, it was the same thing. You tell businessmen, come, the government wants to speak to you, and everybody comes in. Then you begin to speak English and they go, oh boy, when are they going to start sharing this money now? Because there's a misconception. Everybody thinks the state government is there to share money, to share proceeds and spoils. Those days are long gone. Nigeria is broke. We need to get up and begin to actually generate revenue. Full stop. Full stop. So what did we do in Kaduna State? We began with a state development plan. The state development plan contains what you want to achieve over a certain period of time. In our case, it was about 4 years. We renewed it every single 4 years. So your planning and budget commission or budget and planning ministry sits down, crafts it. In fact, it goes all the way down to what we call not an SDP, an LGDP. Every single local government should be able to tell you what their vision is for the next 4 or 8 years. Every single local government. So your local government chairman, caretakers, administrators, or whoever should be able to articulate where they're headed. Not when federal government money comes down to state and then we shout fiscal autonomy, you give the local government chairman, they receive the 100 million, they pocket it, and then they travel abroad or they give their girlfriends money. That's not it. We have passed all that level now. What are you going to do with the 100 million naira, right? A lot of all these problems are actually at a very local government level. You should stop disturbing your state governors and even the president. There are local problems to be solved by local politicians, local leaders, and all these things. So that's why I keep stressing the fact that everybody here has a shared responsibility or a collective responsibility. People don't like taking responsibility because it is hard work. You have to get up. If everybody has to sweep their compound, do everything, it is a hard task for us to do than for you to just blame somebody. That's an easy game to play. So once you have that, you then embark on public finance management reforms. So your SIFTAs, I don't know if much of you know all these things, state fiscal transparency, accountability, initiatives and so on. You do your zero-based budgeting, all the ministries come together in alignment with this state development plan. Once you do that, you create, delivery units in the state governor's office to ensure that these plans are actually kept on track and nobody falls out of alignment. So let's think of it this way. Think of it as a house. You have the vision, then you have 2 rooms. There's the economy, and then there's social welfare. The economy is the production, the factories, the MSMEs. Then you have the supporting infrastructure, so fiber optic cables, the road networks, etc., and so on, that enables you to do business. And then you have social welfare. This is the one that everybody knows: healthcare, education, gender-based initiatives, and so on and so forth. Then underlying it at the foundational level is your security and justice system. You need to secure your state for people to be able to invest and for the citizens to live better lives. It's just common sense. Justice, judicial system needs to be reformed so that your regulatory frameworks, your contractual disputes as business people would be expedited in a timely manner. What is your magistrate courts like? What are your, do you have multi-door courts? Do you have small claims court? Do you have alternative dispute resolution avenues to reduce pressure on the high court and so on and so forth? And then you have governance, institutional reforms. You cannot do more than your civil service or the capacity of your civil service in your state, no matter how brilliant your governor is or his team is. Service delivery is key. And if you have civil servants that don't have the capacity for service delivery for you guys as the private entrepreneurs and enterprise, nothing gets done in the state. So public service reform is key. I'm not saying that, you take everybody in public service and then push them out. No, you train them, retrain them. It's a mindset game. All of them need to be aligned to a vision. They know, okay, oh boy, this leadership is serious. I better get up and see what opportunities, and how I can deliver for my state, right? So you do that. You embark on public service reforms. Once all these key institutions are built, like the reformed BIPC, hopefully, you'll be able to deliver. Every single ministry, department, or agency should be able to have KPIs, its own plan in line with the SDP, and then you just begin to execute, and they should be able to communicate this to everybody. All of you here should be able to say, Dr. Raymond is trying to achieve over the next 4 years. That is public service. It is public. It needs to be told to everybody, right? So once you do that, I think in Kaduna we did something called policy councils. So we have the executive council, which is the highest decision body making, decision body or whatever, in the state. Below it, we had 5 policy councils. So you have the EXCO, you have Human Capital Development Council, Economic Development Council, Institutional Development Council, Procurement Council, and I think something else, I can't remember. So there were 5. So people like me were in the Economic Development Council. We did our memos. We were with fellow MDs, commissioners, and so on. So nobody worked in silos. If I was doing the investment drive, this other ES or DG would be bringing investors to me. Likewise, I knew what his mandate was or her mandate was, and I'll be also helping them along the way, right? So if you think about how business is done in a state, what a state government can do is as follows. There's something called business environment reforms. And these business environment reforms is, how do you reduce the time, the cost, and the procedure to do business in a state? This is the rankings that Dr. Raymond was talking about, MD. If all of you as business people don't experience a difference within the next 4 years in terms of the time, cost, and procedure it takes for you to, 1, obtain a CFO in this state, obtain an environmental impact assessment, obtain a building permit, contractual disputes, maybe registering a property or registering or trying to pay your taxes, or let's say paying for your business premise registration. If all of you don't experience advancement in either of these key benchmarks, the state government has failed you. And then there's no business, right? Because if I'm an investor and I'm coming in here and you're telling me it takes me 6 months for me to get CFO, I'm going to fly to another state where it takes a month, full stop. So every single subnational in Nigeria has to begin to compete. There's something known as competition, cooperative competition, right? Where, let's say a Kaduna will say, oh, okay, it takes a month for you to get your CFO and blah, blah, blah. Benue will be like, no, it takes 2 weeks for you to get a CFO here. The investor is going to come here, right? You, the business people, are going to move to another state, and so on and so forth, right? So this is where, this is what the state. Okay, let me give them a brief moment for them to settle.
Sir, I don't know if you make this big announcement. There's a launch before that goes to the entrance for the deputy governor to come in. Okay. And for that person to go and report for who? Land Cruiser, automatic call. Should go and report for the deputy governor's car.
Okay. There's a person with a Land Cruiser with a diplomatic license plate that is blocking His Excellency the Deputy Governor's car. If you can, please move it. Please. Thank you. A Land Cruiser. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I've spoken about business environment reforms. Then another key thing in any state is data. Evidence-based governance is key. The reason why a lot of states, you do roads that lead to nowhere, you do initiatives that lead to nowhere and have no impact is because there's no data driving it. What is the state GDP like? What is your trade indices like? What are your demography like? You need to know what the problems are based on data and for you to be able to solve it. It's common sense. Again, easier said than done. Do you have a residence management agency? If so, everybody here should have a residency card showing that, look, I live in Benue, I'll be able to access government services using this residency card and so on. And it's also used efficiently for effective planning and management in your planning and budget ministry. And then the most important component of all of this, the investment promotion drive. BIPC should, once it is reformed, be the one-stop shop for all of you. Either that or you demarcate it into two. BIPC does one for big investors, and then you establish maybe an enterprise development agency, which is like a mini Maiden at a state level. And this should be able to cater to MSMEs, providing support, finance, and so on and so forth. We did the same in Kaduna under the Ministry of Commerce. This was a one-stop shop for MSMEs. Meanwhile, my agency was a one-stop shop for investors. So all complaints, whatever it is that you needed to be handled, was handled at that level. So what does this agency do? It does investment promotion, so that's image building, telling you what the comparative advantages are, hosting events like this, and so on and so forth. Then investment facilitation, what I spoke about. How easy is it and how fast can Dr. Raymond facilitate the investment? So if you're looking for land, how fast was he able to do it? If you're looking for a building permit, how fast was he able to solve all those key problems? That is also very vital. Then there's something known as aftercare and advocacy. Aftercare services is, okay, the existing businesses in Benue State, how do you treat them? Have you solved their problems? Because data has shown that nobody does more marketing for you in a state than the existing investors in that state. Imagine bringing in a Dangote and then all of you here see that we're treating the Dangote differently from yourselves. It is investment apartheid. It doesn't make any sense, right? The local investors here, like the name of the event is, you guys are meant to testify to other investors to be able to come into Benue. You are the marketers of the state. So if I'm doing business with any one of you, be like, I'm in Benue State too. That place is excellent, has an excellent business environment, the government is very serious and so on and so forth. So the private businesses are the key drivers of the marketing itself. So aftercare services is key. Dr. Raymond needs to go round, and as a public servant, he's meant to serve all of you. You guys are his boss. This is how government is meant to work. The electorate are the bosses of those in government. It is a very, very hard pill to swallow, especially when you're walking around and you have people and orderlies, and then you have one citizen telling you that this is how I think you should do it. You should listen. He's your boss. He got you voted in. Full stop. That is the power that the private sector has. That's the power that the population has, and it is a bitter truth for us to swallow for those of us in government. After your aftercare services, there's this World Bank program called SABRE. Exactly. Once you key into SABRE, there's a lot of public sector reforms, and I'm sure Dr. Raymond will be able to achieve all these over the next few years. So these public sector reforms are quite vast, but I've already mentioned them. Access to CFOs, building permits, etc., and so on and the likes. But there's also the PPP component, public-private partnerships, very, very key. And I think when you're reforming your agency, you should make sure you're the one-stop shop for PPPs in the state. Either that or you put it in a relevant MDA. Public-private partnerships is a very, very abused word in Nigeria. Somebody can just do a JV and call it PPP. That is not a PPP. Public-private partnerships are what you use to procure infrastructure using private capital and private expertise and efficiency. So let's say we want to build a bridge in Benue State. Dr. Raymond goes out, says we have an SDP, does a feasibility study, does a concept note, an outline business case, justifies that we need a bridge here in Benue. He then gets private sector capital to come in as a concessionaire. Maybe they toll it, maybe they find ways to make money off it, and then they sign a concession agreement where the investor builds, operates, and then transfers the asset back to the state government over the next 10, 20, or 30 years. That is actually what a PPP is. So these PPPs are key for building infrastructure across the state. It's a bit technical and it's a bit dry because even me, I sleep when people are talking to me about PPPs, but they are key and they are necessary, especially when you're building infrastructure in any state. So I hope it to be domiciled in his company going forward so that you also get to see the fruits of this initiative. So like the compare mentioned, my agency were able to facilitate investments worth $4 billion. And I've had a lot of people come to me and go, Kalu, how can you say you did $4 billion? That's 4 trillion naira, it doesn't make any sense. Well, we're not saying $4 billion on ground, physical, you're touching it. No, we're saying $4 billion of investment portfolio. It is a portfolio because it contains two things. Announced investments, so these are investors that we have spoken to. They have committed to investing X amount. We record it as, say, Khalil Ventures wants to invest $10 million. We then record it. But once Khalil Ventures goes on site and begins to build, we now record it as actualized investments on ground. So that $4 billion, we can say, oh, actualized is $2 billion, announced is still $2 billion. So what you're meant to be doing as an investment promotion agency or an investment and property company is to continue to actualize the announced investments. So as you're doing that, it's now meant to reflect in, one, the IGR of the state. So those investors are meant to be paying payee, personal income tax, property tax, and so on and so forth. Okay, and so on and so forth. It's now meant to reflect in jobs created. Everything you're meant to be doing in investment promotion drive is meant to reflect in job creation. If jobs are not being created, again, we should all leave this hall, everybody should resign, there's no point. So jobs should be at the #1 priority of the subnational government, especially when you're driving these investments. Now in Kaduna, we're able to do quite a lot of investments, foreign direct investment, domestic investments, and so on. I don't know if a lot of you know Kaduna State. There's L0CAL there. They invested about $200 million. L0CAL alone, if you're traveling by road, I travel by road a lot between Abuja-Kaduna Highway. Before L0CAL came, there was the issue of insecurity along the Abuja-Kaduna Highway. But we put L0CAL there. We put L0CAL there because it was counterintuitive. If you don't create economic opportunities in places that there are no economic activities, you're just going to get bandits. The economic opportunity there is for me to be a bandit to make money. But if the economic opportunity is there for me to be employed or to supply L0CAL, then it's a more viable, more dignified way of making money. It's very counterintuitive, but that's what happened. And that whole place, I don't think you guys have heard of any kidnap along those lines anymore, because everybody there has turned into a farmer. You're just providing soybeans, supplies, and so on. You're providing soybeans or whatever to L0CAL, the feed mill, and so on. It's the largest poultry feed mill company in sub-Saharan Africa. This alone, this investment alone, I think it created, we still haven't fully assessed the impact of L0CAL alone, because you go to Kubau, you see farmers, they'll come out and be like, oh, thank God for L0CAL, I'm now a millionaire, I've built my house, all my kids have gone to school, blah, 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 and so on. And those are the kind of stories that government should be living for. Those are the kind of stories that government should be coming out, beating its chest and saying, look at what we've been able to do with this company, look at what we've been able to do with that company, look at what we've been able to do when we created XYZ jobs and XYZ suppliers. Because that's what happens across the value chain, right? So that's just one company. There's like 6, 10 other huge companies that I can mention, like African Natural Resources and Mines Limited. Everybody knows about Ajaokuta Steel. $4 billion put in Ajaokuta Steel and blah, blah, and so on. But a $600 million investment between Abuja and Kaduna in Kagarko is doing direct reduced iron. It's a new method of steel making. They make crude steel production. It's the first of its kind in West Africa. Is probably the only crude processing, iron crude processing steel, I think, steel plant in Africa. What these guys are doing is they're taking the iron ore, compressing it, doing the crude steel. Is like little pellets, which would then be melted, and then they'll be using it for the steel rods. And this will revolutionize industries across Nigeria, if not West Africa, if not Africa itself. We were just lucky to have it because the iron ore sat one-sided into Kaduna State and not into Niger State. But because these investors knew Kaduna State was doing an investment promotion drive, they leaned towards Kaduna State. Full stop. It was not rocket science, right? We cajoled them and said, no. If you do the plant here, the government will support you, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll give you this, and so on and so forth. And we did. Waivers, incentives, and so on and so forth. And today, this plant alone employs 2,000 people. 2,000 people across their value chain. This is what government should be living by. Okay. And then there's a bunch of other investments. Tomato Jaws, Zipline that does medical drone supplies and the likes. Then every state government should look into doing maybe an agro-industrial processing zone or some kind of cluster where industries are domiciled or co-located. In Kaduna, we did the special agro-industrial processing zone. We're part of the first phase. I think it was along Abuja-Kaduna Highway where Olam is situated. And then there's something called the Green Economic Zone. And then I think right before I left, we started something called the Kaduna Technology City. Sadly, I'm from Katsina, so I'm taking that project to Katsina to finish it. Okay. So let me quickly conclude. Like the chairman of the event mentioned, right? Once you have a vision, you need to key this vision into the global economy. You need to know where you sit in the global economy. Like I mentioned earlier, the world has transitioned, the world has moved on. So let's say if you're into tech and you're from Benue State, you know you can be a remote worker to either a Google, a Meta, that's Facebook, etc., and all these people. And you'll be earning hard-earned dollars sitting right in your living room, right? This is why there's a conflation between Yahoo boys and people that are doing tech. Yahoo boys are doing one thing, which we need to regulate and make sure, EFCC clamps down on them. But on the other side, we have brilliant coding tech gurus that are inside their apartments making $6,000, $7,000, that's 6-7 million naira monthly clean. These guys are not making any noise. They are not disrupting anything, but they're there making history in their living rooms. Watch out for those, and these are the ones that the government needs to identify, bring them out, and make sure they are success stories within your own state. They exist. I'm pretty sure they exist here. I'll give you a very quick example before I round up. I have a personal example. I have a small brother, right? He looks just like me. He's just taller and darker. I have a small brother. Back in the days, we used to have family problems. I used to sleep on the floor, all these things before I became a big man. So Abubakar, I always said, yes, I always said, Abubakar, I've been into Bitcoin since 2012. It's this digital currency money thing that we don't want all these Yahoo guys to take over. We need young, brilliant guys to focus on it and build the infrastructure around it. And I said, just focus on it, learn about it, learn what the protocol is, see what you can do, blah, 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 etc. He was 19 or 18 years old at that time. He learned the protocol, contributed to it, did quite well, right? Next thing you know, this small boy, one was, there's this thing called Bitcoin Trust. Jack Dorsey, I don't know if most of you know who Jack Dorsey is. He's the founder of Twitter. Next thing you know, fast forward 4 years or so, I walk into his room and this guy is on his computer. He has not told me, so it's a surprise. And he's talking on Zoom with Jack Dorsey, Jay-Z, and a few other guys. He was selected out of 7,000 people to lead the whole Bitcoin movement in Africa and to oversee $15 million or 500 Bitcoins or so at that time. And today he leads the only Bitcoin venture capital in Africa. I think he's raising about $3 billion or whatever. He's speaking across the world all the time, etc. One small boy in my own house. So every time my mother comes to me and says, big man, she'll be like, you don't even have money, let me ask your small brother. And that's just it. It is the minute little brilliant kids that will end up driving Nigeria's future. Identify them, nurture them, give them the necessary support, because even you too can benefit. Me too, I'm benefiting. If I'm broke, I'll call him, guy, send me money. Government has not paid me my salary. Shikena. Everybody benefits, right? And it is a thing of pride for us to now boast that we are the largest black nation in the world. But we have so success stories to back up the claim. So to conclude, if you're going to do inclusive economic growth, because economic growth is very dangerous, you can do a Dangote type economic growth. One guy, he's the billionaire, he has thrived, all of us are left behind. Or one tech guy, he's a billionaire, he employed only 2 or 3 people because all the processes are automated. So what you ought to do as a state, like we did in Kaduna, is to do maybe something called inclusive business drive. It's a policy where if a company is situated in X local government, you assess everybody around that company. What were their incomes before this company came? What are their incomes after the company came? If there's no change, what is that company doing, please? They are not helping the community. Government needs to sanction them. The governor needs to come down hard on them. If incomes increase, jobs increase, internally generated revenues increase, and the state government is monitoring it, that is what is known as an inclusive business. Then you accredit the inclusive businesses. You then say, good, you are now an accredited business. The next time you want to expand or you want to do anything within this state, we're going to give you waivers, we're going to give you free land, etc., just to encourage that business to be able to do more. Same goes with the MSMEs, right? If you're creating enough impact, you should be celebrated in your state or in Nigeria, right? So that's just it. Then just to round up, human capital development is key. People, jobs, right? You need to be able to train people, train. But when you train, not the one where government will be like, we have trained 1 million people. The question is, so what? You train them, what did they do? Did they end up as bandits? What did they do? Show us the impact. The impact is for you to link them either to job opportunities or to provide the enabling environment for them to become their own bosses and to become their own bosses, right? This should be the key. Human capital development should have a starting point and an ending point. And we did that a lot. We did CASTEP entrepreneurship programs. We did Click on Kaduna, mostly for techies and so on and so forth. We did artisan training programs. So all the construction people that are constructing things in Kaduna, you employ them from those programs and so on. So I can do a 3-day workshop on what we did in Kaduna, but this is just a little teaser, because everything we're doing is a mindset shift. It's the hardest thing to do in Nigeria. Everybody is very cynical in this country. Everybody tells you, we cannot change. Sir, move aside. Let us who want to change it move in and do our work. So, in closing, please let us begin to operationalize the policies and the English that we've been speaking. This is the secret to any subnational economic development. And in a century or so, we all won't be here. But it is the ideas, the institutions, the systems that we have created, and the team that has been put in place that will remain, and the foundations of the future that is trying to be built here in Benue State. In the end, if executed right, this administration won't only be remembered by the eloquence of the speech of the government officials, but by the eloquence of the action of these individuals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you very much. $4 billion. Can you now see where the money came from? Another round of applause. That's what our people say, small but mighty. Small but mighty. It is you and I that are going to change the narrative. And he started by saying change is difficult. It takes what? Discipline. Tell your neighbor it takes discipline. If you want to change the world, a field marshal, you know what he said? First, make your bed. Hello? If you want to change the world, make your bed. If you can wake up every day and make your bed, you have the discipline it takes for you to change the world. That was mind-blowing. Khalil, no Khalil, will celebrate you. Please put your hands together for Khalil. And with the thinking of BIPC, I'm going to ask you this question now. Did you hear what Kaduna did? Did you hear? Is Benue ready to do same and more? I can't hear you. Are we ready to do what Kaduna did and more? I can't hear you. It's not convincing. Are we ready to do it? A resounding answer will move us forward, or we'll close this event now. Are we ready to surpass Kaduna State? Me, I'm not ready to do what Kaduna did. I'm ready to surpass them. So we can do better than Kaduna. We have better resources. We have better, more fertile land. We have River Kaduna. A River Benue is 10 times more than River Kaduna, right? We have all the resources. We have more mineral resources deposited in our lands than what we have in Kaduna. What are we waiting for? It's the decision, right? He said the mindset shift. We need to shift our minds away from expecting government to give out handouts, from rising up and being the change that we want to be. So, the executive governor is here, ably represented by his deputy. And I'm not going to waste our time, so I'm just quickly going to make a few recognitions and then yield the mic to the governor to respond to what he heard and also declare this event officially open. May I recognize the presence of Dr. Emmanuel Chenge, the Principal Private Secretary of His Excellency, the Governor of Benue State. Sir, you're welcome. May I also recognize the presence of the former MD and CEO of Nexim Bank, Dr. Robert Oya. Sir, you're welcome. And this event is hybrid, by the way, in case you don't know. We're living in a global village. And so we made sure that discourse that will develop our state does not have to be limited by in-person conversation. So we opened up this conversation to global participation for Benue indigents. And I want to recognize the entire Benue sons and daughters that are participating on this event on the virtual link. Please, your round of applause for them. Some of our panelists are on these platforms. We have persons like Iverin Etiokia, who is the partner manager at Ashoka. We have Mr. Prince Will Odum, who is a robotic engineer in UK. He is also on the platform. We have Mr. John Pilaku, who is an expert in agricultural value chains and nutrition. He's also joining us on the panel on the platform. May I recognize the presence of Adingi Godwin, the CEO of Copec Solutions, Honorable Dennis Zawa, Special Advisor to the Benue State Governor, Honorable Alex Avaka, Chairman, Oshongo Local Government. Honorable Chairman, you're welcome, sir. Architect James Ugo, the CEO of IDS Limited. We will continue to recognize our special guests as the names come into us. And before I move, may I especially recognize one of our panelists, Chief David Ibrahim Adulugba. He is the CEO of King DI Nigeria Limited. He is a former Executive Secretary of NEPC, which is Nigerian Export Promotion Council. So we have cream de la cream in this place to be able to provoke the right sort of conversation to open up Benue for investments to come into the state. Today is the day and you are in the right place. So I personally want to celebrate you all. And at this moment, I want to officially yield the mic to the Executive Governor, His Excellency Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, who is ably, PhD, who is ably represented by Barrister Sam Ode, MNI. He is the Deputy Governor of Benue State. Your Excellency, sir.
Before I start, I would like to pay special tribute to the last speaker, Khalil, for that very erudite presentation. The Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly, Principal Private Secretary to the Governor of Benue State, Honorable Commissioner for Commerce and Industry, and other commissioners here present, special advisors to the Governor, the chair of this event, our own son, very eminent Nigerian, His Excellency Ambassador Yono Aga, PhD. You're welcome. The Managing Director and CEO of the Benue Investment and Property Company, Dr. Ray Asumakaha, CFA, the President of the Benue Chamber of Commerce, Master Porter, Levi Yakubu, MON, very distinguished CEOs of corporations and other businesses who are here with us. Of course, other very distinguished participants who are here in their numbers. We welcome you to the new Benue of our time. I have the leave of the Governor of Benue State, Reverend Father Dr. Hyacinth Alia, to deliver his speech at this very important platform. And I read, you are all welcome to the maiden edition of the Benue Local Investors Forum, which is coming about 7 months after my swearing in as governor. I'm truly excited at the coming alive of this forum for a number of reasons. As key players in any economy, investors are important stakeholders whose contributions shape the economic fortunes of the state or any nation. Secondly, the Benue economy is particularly agrarian, and we have total hope in our investors as partners to offer jobs and services that will boost the economic life of our citizens. This forum is therefore timely and appropriate to awaken the consciousness of our people, especially the youth, to embrace entrepreneurship as a veritable means of meaningfully contributing to the society. In the process, they will also enhance the attainment of their personal dreams. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this forum's goals are progressive and in sync with our government's desire for Benue people to help our economy to grow. It is when we invest and harvest from it that we can stop capital flight out of Benue. On behalf of the government and the good people of Benue State, I convey our solidarity as I now declare this event open and wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you and God bless. I have just delivered the goodwill message of the governor welcoming you to this investment forum. As a participant, my perception of what I have observed here in the short time I have arrived is that Benue is now ready to join the rest of the world to advance. It is important that we note that what we think are the small businesses are actually the cornerstone of any economy. And so, this forum is very essential and couldn't have come at a better time. I want to endorse the courage and the industry of our brand new CEO of the BIPC, Dr. Raymond Asimakaha. I want to say that the governor of this state has begun a good job by headhunting the best of Benue to come and become key drivers of our economy. I thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Benue State, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, PhD, ably represented by his deputy, Barrister Sam Ode, MNI. Thank you so much. A round of applause for the governor. May I invite my co-anchor to please come and take us to the next phase of the program. Please welcome Naomi.
Thank you very much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, can we give ourselves a very warm round of applause this morning? Thank you. In the words of the Executive Governor of Benue State, ably represented by his deputy this morning, Benue State is ready. Benue State is now ready to join the rest of the world to advance, and no better time than now can we have this forum and this kind of discussion to set the ball rolling, and that's a very, very worthy cause. As we move on this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring up someone who will be speaking to us. I've had the chance and the opportunity to sit in audiences and to get to listen to him. And I'd like to say this very specially to get you to prepare your hearts to get ready to listen to all that he has to say this morning. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point I'll be inviting someone who will be speaking on the topic, the role of MSMEs on the economic development of Benue State, investment opportunities in the sector. Please, if your hands are not busy, put them together as I welcome Mr. Oyiman Alu from Smedan. Keep clapping as he comes forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to stand before you to make this presentation. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't bring you any kind of good news. I'm bringing you the reality of things as they are in Benue and the opportunities that we have in the sector. For us who deal with entrepreneurs, what we say is that wherever there's a challenge, that's where entrepreneurs succeed. And so we're looking at the role of micro, small and medium enterprises, the economic development of Benue State, the investment opportunities that we have in the sector. Next slide, please. All right, so basically we're doing an analysis of micro, small and medium enterprises that we have in Benue State. We've done a lot of work in the MSME ecosystem in the state, and we're basically presenting the report of what we have done so far. Next slide, please. All right, so we have what we call a national policy on micro, small, and medium enterprises. And the vision of the policy, as we can see on the board, is basically to ensure the emergence and sustenance of an ecosystem that enables Nigeria's MSMEs to be locally and globally competitive. And as we go through it, within this very brief period, we'll look at what we have. We at Maiden will have a vision of establishing a structured and efficient micro, small, and medium enterprises sector that will enhance the sustainable economic development of Nigeria. And our mission basically is to facilitate the access of micro, small, and medium entrepreneurs and investors to all resources required for their growth and development. Next slide, please. All right, so basically this is about the functions of what at Maiden. What we do is to initiate and articulate ideas for small and medium enterprises, policy thrust. We also oversee and coordinate the development of MSMEs in Nigeria. We collate data and analyze this data and present to governments both at the national and subnational so that they can look at the issues that are affecting the growth of MSMEs in the country and in the subnational regions of the country. Next slide, please. And then we also recommend to the federal government from time to time on applicable tax and tariff regimes and other financial incentives for promoting the development of MSMEs in Nigeria. Now, this one here, if we look at it, this is what we call the classification of MSMEs. Most of the time we hear about micro, small, and medium enterprises, and I've been in situations where people mix up very micro businesses and call them small business, or small business, they call them large businesses. But this is how we classify enterprises in Nigeria. The classification is done differently across the world. Different countries, sometimes different countries use the sector, some other countries use the number of employment and all of that. But here in Nigeria, what we do is we have the nano enterprise, which we introduced in the year 2000, the year of COVID. We introduced the least classification called the nano enterprises, which informally we call the one-man business. They employ not more than 2 people and have a annual turnover of not more than 3 million naira. Those are the ones we call the nano enterprises. The micro enterprises employ less than 10 people, from 3 to less than 10 people, and have a turnover of 3 million to less than 25 million naira annually. Next slide, please. Small enterprises employ 10 to less than 50 people and have a turnover of 25 million to less than 100 million naira annually, while medium-sized enterprises employ from 50 people to less than 200 people and have a turnover of 100 million naira to less than 1 billion naira. So if you have a turnover that is more than 1 billion naira, according to the Nigerian definition or classification of enterprises, you are a large enterprise and you are outside of our purview, so we don't deal with industries that are large in nature. Next slide. All right, so here we are as it concerns the Benue environment. In 2021, we launched our 4th national survey on micro, small, and medium enterprises. And we realized that we have 870,804 nano, micro, small, and medium enterprises put together, what we just defined earlier. That's the number we have. But of this number, only 21,214 MSMEs were registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission as at 2021. What this means is that if we bring $100 million and say we want to invest in, let's say, 100,000 MSMEs in Benue State, each of them, let's say we want each of them to get $100,000. Now, if we put out the requirement that the first requirement you need to access that fund is to have a CAC registration certificate, how many people do you think will access that funding? If all of them put together go for that funding, not more than 21,000 enterprises will access it. Are we together? So that means that just one qualification, one requirement has disqualified over 79,000 enterprises. If we want to empower 100,000 enterprises in Benue State, and we request for a CAC certificate as the only requirement, it means only 21,000 plus enterprises will access it, out of 870,000 enterprises in the state. Now, in 2022, the National Bureau of Statistics also carried out the Multidimensional Poverty Index. And the report showed that 132 million Nigerians live in extreme poverty. That means people who earn less than $1.9 a day. So if you earn less than $1.9 a day, you are considered extremely poor by the SDGs. And the multidimensional poverty show that people are experiencing deprivations in either their health, they don't have access to health, or education, or living standards, lack of accommodation or transport or basic feeding or livelihood, survival, and work and shocks. Those who are not employed or underemployed. Underemployed, you are either doing a job that pays you far less than your knowledge and experience. And if you are experiencing that, it means you're underemployed and you are most likely also living in poverty, even though you have a job. Next slide. Now, Benue State, according to that report, has about, or that as at 2022, had over 4.7 million poor people residing in the state. That is, we have over 4.7 million people who earn less than $1.9 a day. It is the state with the highest number of poor people in the north-central zone of Nigeria, and it is also the 7th state with the highest number of poor people living in Nigeria. I'm sorry, I think I said it from the beginning that I didn't bring any good news, and this is it that I'm presenting to you. Next slide, please. All right, so let's move, click again. All right, you can see that Benue State is highlighted in red. What this means is that we are in danger, and we need to take adequate steps to address these issues. Otherwise, by the next 4 years, we will have too much problems to solve. Next slide. We're presenting the data on SMEs to give us the idea of what we need to know and the solutions that we need to take to address this. Now, in 2010, we conducted the first national MSME survey in Nigeria. And for Benue State, I just narrowed it down to Benue, not for Nigeria, but at some point I'll just do a little comparative analysis. In 2010, we had 436,391 MSMEs in Benue State. Unfortunately, we did not take a record of the number of jobs created in the sector. Next slide. In 2013, Nigeria had a rebase of the economy, and we became the #1 economy in Africa. And in Benue State, we had over 1.4 million MSMEs in the state. We jumped from just 400,000 to over 1.4 million. And we have a total employment of 1.9 million people in the MSME sector. Next slide. In 2017, we recorded 1.5, there was a drop between 2013 and 2017. We recorded 1.5 million micro enterprises in the state, and these enterprises employed over 1.7 million people. That also was a drop. Next slide. And so we'll look at the comparative analysis. Between 2013 and 2017, we lost 99,000 MSMEs in the state in the period of 4 years. Let me allow that sink in a little bit. That's the number of jobs that we lost in the MSME sector alone in the state. Next slide. That was the number of SMEs, sorry, not the jobs. This is the one that shows the number of jobs. Between 2013 and 2017, we lost 262,566 jobs in the MSME sector. Next slide. Now, the latest survey that we've had in 2021, when it was launched, we recorded 870,000 MSMEs in the state, employing 1.499 million people with CAC registration of 21,214. There are other businesses that are large that may have registered that may increase this number based on what BIPC has. Those ones, BIPC deals with both MSMEs and the large industry, so their figures may reveal something a little higher than this. Next slide. So this is just the illustration. At every given point, we have a higher number of nano and micro enterprises, those informal businesses. The Mainama in the abattoir, the shoemaker, all of them are captured under the informal sector. So we count each and every one of them in our surveys. So from 2010, sorry, can we go back just a little bit? From 2010 up until 2021, you can see that the ones highlighted in blue are the nano and the micro enterprises. The small enterprises are the ones in orange, and the medium size, you can barely even see them because they are so insignificant. In Benue State, we have less than 1,000 medium-sized enterprises. Less than 1,000. Next slide, please. All right, so here is just a summary of what we have. You can see on the map of Nigeria, there are 3 states that are highlighted in red. The 3 states you can see highlighted in red are the states that lost the highest number of enterprises between 2017 and 2021. Down the south, you can see Rivers State. In the middle of the country, you can see Benue State. And a little up north, you can see the state where Khalil was the head of the Kadipa. Kaduna State is the 3rd state that lost the highest number of enterprises. And it's very interesting that he's also here to see what the survey that we conducted has about the issues that affected the states. Now, the major reason for some of this drop had to do with the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me make that clear. The COVID-19 pandemic was the #1 issue affecting the states, but then there were other issues concerning insecurity. There were other issues concerning government policies, unfriendly government policies, issues of multiple taxation, and we're going to highlight some of these things as we go. MSMEs contribute 85% to employment in Nigeria. To the GDP, we contribute 46.3%, and then we only contribute 6.2% to export. Why is the number for export so low? MSMEs mostly are not registered. The head of the Export Promotion Council will tell you that we have a problem of branding and packaging. We have a low level of production. MSMEs produce very little. We cannot even meet the market demand in Nigeria, not to talk of export. So our contribution to export is just 6.2%, while 63.6% are male-owned and 36.4% are female-owned. Now, but it is not all bad news for Benue. So I am just bringing the reality of the report as we have conducted in the country. Next slide, please. Now you can see that the states that lost the highest number of businesses between 2017 and 2020 or 2021 when we launched, Rivers alone lost over 1 million MSMEs in the country. Out of the just 3 million were lost in the whole country, and Rivers alone accounted for over 1 million. Benue State was #2. We lost over 700,000 MSMEs within a period of 4 years, 2017 to 2021. Kaduna lost 511,506. Now, these 3 states put together lost over 2 million MSMEs in the country. That is a huge number, and that means we are on life support in Benue State, and there's a lot of work to be done. The other, sorry, can we go back a bit? If you put the other 33 states combined together with the FCT, they only lost 823,000. Some states didn't even lose one. Some states gained. Others lost significantly very little numbers. So that is the report that we have for the country. And I wanted you to look at the comparative analysis of what Benue went through and what other states in the country went through. Next slide. Now, these are the top sectors. Now, for those of us who are trying to invest in both MSMEs and other sectors of the economy, agriculture contributed 38% to our GDP. Agriculture is the #1 sector, in as much as Benue State went through a lot of insecurity issues. Agriculture is still #1 on the list of sectors, production in the country, in the state. Wholesale and retail trade takes 33.3%, other services 9.8%, manufacturing 4.2%, while others contribute 14.3%. Next slide. That is just to show the graphical representation of the sectors as they contribute to the GDP of the country. Next slide, please. All right, so now this is just a mini dashboard showing what Benue State has gone through, some of the things I have presented. The key economic sectors in the state in the MSME space has to do with agriculture, including aquaculture and processing of agricultural commodities, real estate, ICT, education, road and marine transport, creative industry, which has to do with the entertainment, the hospitality sector, such as the hotels, and then fashion and all of that, photography and all of that fall into the creative industry, light manufacturing, welding, repairs, fabrication, art, and all of that. These are the top sectors that we have. There are so many others, but I just had to highlight the ones that fall within the top 6 and top 7 sectors in the state. Next slide. Now, these are the challenges that MSMEs face. I'm sure some of them, we are very familiar with them as entrepreneurs, as businessmen and women. We must have experienced at least one or two of these issues. From the issue of limited access to finance. It's difficult to get funding for your business, and much as it's difficult to get funding, sometimes we also do not have the requirements to meet up even when the funding is made available. At the opening session, I mentioned the number of registered businesses with the CAC, and to show how even if money is made available now, and we ask you to bring just one requirement, how so many people will be disqualified from accessing those funds. So these are some of the issues that we have. Even when the money is available, sometimes it's difficult to access it because we have not been able to put together some of the requirements that we need. There are issues of multiple and illegal taxation. If you're traveling into Benue from the 3 major entry points of the state, if you're coming in from Lafia in the north, if you're coming in from Taraba or from Cross River, or you're coming in from Enugu, most of the time, if you're traveling by road, it is just when you come into Benue State that you begin to see so many checkpoints. So many checkpoints, you begin to wonder which of them are government-owned checkpoints, or they are just set up by young men and women who do not have jobs and want to extort money from you illegally. So we have issues of multiple and illegal taxation as the second issue affecting the growth of MSMEs. And then there's the issue of poor infrastructure. Road networks in our local government are actually very poor. It's difficult for farmers to move their products from the farmhouse to the market. These are issues affecting entrepreneurship. Some of us also have very poor entrepreneurship culture. There's issue of insecurity, poor availability of data on SMEs, inconsistency in government policies, poor support services and programs, low access to markets, and the inability to access power and water. That is another issue. I'm sure there's barely anywhere you go now that you get public water supply anywhere. And then there's the weak industrial base and the weak industrial policy of the state. Next slide, please. And these are some of the gaps. Because we have a low level of business formalization in the whole country, only 3.7% of MSMEs in the country are registered with CAC. And if you want to export, there are so many other requirements that you need to register with. And we were able to carry out a lot of programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Survival Fund, we had free business registrations, and all of that. In Benue, we were able to register over 20,000 MSMEs with the CAC. But most of them now still went back and could not even afford to file their annual returns. And some of them have been delisted. So these are some of the issues that we have. MSMEs contribute 46.3% to GDP, and we have a target of 70% by 2025. Next slide. Now we've done a SWOT analysis for Benue State. And these are the strengths we have. For Benue State, we have a high level of availability of raw materials, agricultural raw materials. There's abundant low-cost labor for manufacturing, location advantages because of the central nature of the state, plus the fact that we have roads, we have water, we have rail, though not functioning, but the location that we're in the central part of the country is a huge strength for us. We have a favorable and clement weather. Sometimes it can get very hot, sometimes it can get very cold, but the weather is good to produce so many things that are agri-based for the country. And then we have the navigable rivers. Next slide. What are the weaknesses that we have? As at the time we were preparing this, we don't know if we have an industrial policy for the state. And we are also wondering if we have the energy policy for the state. Some of these things are things that we are yet to see, and so we are hoping that we'll have them ready very soon. There's poor power supply and poor reticulation of water for industrial use, lack of entrepreneurship knowledge and managerial ability, lack of basic infrastructure, difficulty in accessing financing, low agricultural productivity at the farm level, which is not even enough to meet our local consumption, not to talk of export. And then low level of agricultural mechanization. Most of the farm work we do, we still use manual labor, endemic level of corruption. Next slide. What are the opportunities available in the MSME sector? There's a huge local and export market. We just launched in 2021, we launched the Zakibiam yam market. It has been formally transformed into an export market. And so there are opportunities for huge exports there. Enhanced revenue generation for the state, wealth creation and employment generation. There's an opportunity to lift millions of people out of poverty. Low interest rates, loans from development financial institutions, and development of the manufacturing sector are opportunities that are available in the MSME sector. Next slide. What are the threats? First is the issue of insecurity. Agriculture has been identified as the #1 sector for MSMEs, and most of our farmers are unable to go to the farm due to issues of insecurity. These issues need to be addressed for us to be able to tackle the production levels in terms of agriculture. There are issues of policy inconsistencies where every government comes in with a new policy or a new direction and abandons previous policies that are set to be implemented. And then there's the issue of multiple and illegal taxation. Most people who want to come and invest in the state, this issue of multiple taxation is something that has affected most companies in Benue State. This thing has affected us because, and I'll take just a minute to explain the harm that this is causing. If the governor wakes up today and gives an order to the chairman of the Benue Internal Revenue Service that, Mr. Chairman, I need 5 billion naira this month. What the chairman will be thinking of is to meet the target set by the governor. And all he's thinking of is to save his job by getting the 5 billion naira target that has been given. And so he goes into town with the cutlass and a gun to raise that 5 billion. Now, in the process, he raises the tax that he needs to achieve this target. And the people who are affected by this are the MSMEs. And what we have always tried to advocate is that if we finish off the SMEs in the state, that we drop from 1.5 million to only 870,000. That means if the 1.5 million MSMEs were paying 1,000 naira a month, if all of them were able to pay 1,000 naira a month as taxes, that's 1.5 billion naira from the MSME sector alone. Now that they have dropped to 870,000, it means 1,000 naira will fetch the BRS only 870 million naira from MSMEs, if all of them pay. Now imagine that if I'm the governor and I look at the dashboard and the revenue drops from the MSMEs from 1.5 billion down to 870 million. I'll begin to question, why is this dropping? And then if the chairman wants to now raise the revenue, he'll go to market. In order to meet that 1.5 billion, he needs to tax 2,000 naira a month. Now the MSMEs will begin to complain. The tax is going up, but the market is not there. Now, assuming that because of this thing, they drop again to 500,000. That means for each drop, you need to increase the tax. As you're increasing the tax, the burden on the MSMEs is getting higher, and then they'll begin to drop more. So the advocacy is for the tax to be friendlier, so that you have more SMEs. If we have 2 million MSMEs in the state, with each paying 1,000 naira, that's 2 billion. So the more MSMEs, the more the potential to raise money for the state coffers. So this is something that we should seriously sit down and consider as we go forward. And then there's the issue of corruption and rent seeking by government officials. Next slide, please. So I'm trying to round up with the recommendations. It is very important that within the first year, His Excellency the Governor and his team will need to work on developing the Benue industrial and energy policy for the state. It is very critical. Any investor coming in will need to look at the policy that you have and see what areas they can invest in. It is important to eliminate the issue of multiple and illegal taxation. Sometimes you see so many people coming to take revenue in terms of taxes from you. A small business trying to survive is receiving so many guests from the same government. That affects the potential for growth and expansion for MSMEs. And it is important that we address this. How do we balance the need to raise revenue for government and the need for the businesses to survive? There has to be a balance, and we must find that common ground to deal with this issue. There's a need to establish a Benue State Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Agency. This is something we have been advocating for, to domesticate what the national is doing at the state. Facilitate the financing of MSMEs and large industries, and then inaugurate the Benue State Council for MSMEs. The former ES of Kadipa mentioned the one-stop shop. Now, when different organizations are working at different purposes, that affects the need for businesses to grow. We have just inaugurated the National Council on Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, and we are advocating to state governments to also inaugurate state councils on MSMEs. What this council will do is to bring together all the regulatory bodies. For the state, we can bring in the NAFDAC, the FIRS, the tax, the SON, all of them together. What are you doing to support the growth of MSMEs? Now, if we discuss with FIRS, the FIRS, please, can you give tax waivers of 6 months to 1 year for new businesses? And they agree. What then would the BIRS be doing? Because if FIRS gives the tax waiver, but the State Revenue Service doesn't give, it still boils down to the same issue. So we need to bring everybody to be on the same page to introduce policies that will support MSMEs in the state. Next slide. Review existing lease agreements, facilitate the strengthening of cooperatives, set up innovation hubs at the senatorial zones. We need innovation hubs that so many young people are working on to be able to come to a central location where they can spend less in terms of powering their office spaces and all of that. Organize annual Benue Economic and Empowerment Summit. This is very critical, bringing stakeholders together like this to have a discussion. Leasing of government assets should be through a competitive and transparent market-driven process. Not one of the mistakes that most governments make is to assume that somebody who is a good politician is a good businessman or woman. So when we are talking of lease of government properties, it should be devoid of any political connotation. A businessman must not necessarily be a politician. So we must handle these things professionally and through competition. Next slide, please. Streamline the tax collection system. Any government tax should go through one channel. It's the same government. So if BIRS takes the tax something is supposed to go to trade and investment, something is supposed to go to environment, something is supposed to go to, BIRS can collect and then disburse to the relevant bodies. When you see BIRS coming, you see environment coming, you see trade investment coming, the fact that you're seeing so many people coming alone, that thing scares you. So for an entrepreneur, that is a threat that we need to work on. Provision of adequate infrastructure, establishing industrial and MSME parks. One of the things that we have been advocating is the introduction of practical entrepreneurship studies into primary and secondary school curricula. You know, we like to go to school a lot. I'm sure if we ask how many people have PhDs in this room, I'm sure a lot of hands will go up. Now, the fact that we love that, we are trying to imbibe entrepreneurship culture in our school system so that from primary education to secondary, a lot of entrepreneurship, practical entrepreneurship studies are introduced into our curricula, and then in collaboration with the private sector, revive state government enterprises or sell off moribund enterprises. Next slide, please. All of these are things that we're trying to recommend. Next slide. Now, the implementing agencies, BRS to address centralization of taxes. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment should be strengthened to develop the industrial policy for implementation. The newly established MSME agency for the state can develop the state MSME policy for the state. Next slide. BIPC has the responsibility to collaborate with relevant partners to promote the investment climate in the state. This has been mentioned by the previous speakers, while the Ministry of Power and Transport can develop the energy policy for the state. Next slide. These are some of the funding sources where we can get some funding to achieve some of the potentials that we have for the state. Next slide. Now, in order to achieve all of this, it is important that we come together as a team and work together. I have worked with previous governments in the state where people within the same government or agencies within the same government are struggling to take the glory for their own single agencies or ministries. That is counterproductive. It is important that to come together, that is what Henry Ford has said, coming together is the beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. We must work as teams to achieve whatever ambitions that we have. So more efforts are strengthening the operations of MSMEs can ensure job creation, poverty reduction, and economic growth of the Benue economy. Interagency collaboration is key, and the Benue state government has an important role in planning and coordinating the state, national, and international partners in growing our MSMEs, which is very critical. Now, with this, we will be able to have more MSMEs, we'll be able to raise more revenue, we'll be able to have more jobs, and we'll be able to reduce poverty. Everyone wins, and everybody is happy. Thank you very much.
Benue has a lot of resources, as we can see. That was an elaborate dashboard presentation from Maiden, presented by one of our own, Oyeman Alu. Thank you for opening our eyes to see the challenges that we're facing in Benue. And for laying that foundation, we are going to use that to discuss extensively our personal experiences during the breakout sessions. Please, let us celebrate Oyeman Alu. So there's a little bit of house cleaning because we are humans. We're not designed to sit down for more than 2 hours. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. That break would allow the Bensima, which has brought some of their members to do some exhibitions of products SMEs are producing in Nigeria, in Benue. They'll take the deputy governor on a tour of that during the break. All of us can also now follow suit. The governor and his special guests at the high table will do a red carpet outside, and then the break will be over. We'll come back into the real thing. We have received the foundation. The next phase is panel discussions. We are bringing experts in 2 key sectors. One is agriculture, Benue's mainstay. You will hear different perspectives from these people. You will have room to ask questions. Then we will also talk about ICT, because ICT targets young people, it's also cross-cutting, and it is scalable. So we can look at that as well and ask our questions, make our contributions to them as well. And so why the deputy governor is here now, with the permission of the chairman, I officially call on a 5-minute break, which will be led by the governor through the exhibition stands, and they will end up at the door there to do red carpet with your guest, Your Excellency. The rest of us can stand up and stretch ourselves and follow through the same exhibition. Celebrate yourselves as you do that, please. So once you're back too, we'll be getting ready for your lunch. May I, while we're doing that, may I also recognize the presence of the Director General of Benue Television, Dr. Patience Achakba Ikyo. Ma, you're welcome. The President of Bensima, please, can you lead the Deputy Governor through the exhibition, please? The President of Bensima is there, yeah, that's fine. He's there with the Deputy Governor. say it again. Listen very well. Who is our timekeeper? What's the time now? The time is 1:05. 15 minutes after 1, we're sitting back in the hall to resume the panel discussions. So you can stand up. Everybody needs to stand up. Stand up and stretch yourselves. Everybody stand up. Stand up because nature calls you to stand up now. Stand up and walk through the exhibition. Walk outside. Take pictures with at the red carpet so that you keep memories of this day. Yeah, so we didn't announce that. No, okay, we won't do that now. Oh, let me see you. Nigeria. So please, so get your men, move table by table around, just put them here, and then we are also making adjustments to the seating position to allow for proper panel discussions to happen. So as the dignitaries come back, you will find they should be ushered to the new seating locations, please.
Sorry, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Where do I stop?
Okay, fine. You come to the office. Can you come to the office? You will be come to the office. All this yourself, you don't reach my side.